Dr. Patty here again. So look, if you haven't watched the first 2 lessons, then it's time for you to go back and do that so that you can find out all about the MEBES signature system. This is my model for doing client assessments and developing action plans, as well as the overview of how the model works, why it works, and how you can use it in your clinical work. Okay, so the lesson today is about the first E in the MEBES signature system, and that's E for emotions, or the emotional realm. You know, in the last video when I was talking to you about the first letter, which is M for the mental realm, the E for emotions can be one of the trickier parts of the MEBES assessment and action planning tool. Here's why. Most of the trainings that I offer at this point are through Sex Coach U, and they focus on training and preparing sex coaches as skilled, competent clinical sexologists. The hard stuff, however, is when we think about the distinction between coaching and therapy. And probably the most obvious or salient area occurs where there is a distinction in the emotional realm and how we as coaches versus therapists might work with our clients. As a coach, part of our role and part of our mission, in a sense, with a client, that's after we've done our intake assessment, the first phase of the client-coach relationship, it's to look at what is going on with the client in the first place that gets them to seek out our services. When we get to conducting our sessions, one of the aspects that truly differentiates coaching from therapy is this one. A coach will elicit and honor or acknowledge and then redirect emotions. What's the difference? Well, the difference is actually very significant because in coaching, we do not focus on the past history of a client. We acknowledge the past, and I train my students and graduates to be really good detectives for their clients, looking at the threads we can pull through from their past to the present situation. But we don't drill down with the whys and hang out in the past, particularly their childhood development or early development of our clients. We don't, as coaches, focus on trauma. That's not to say that many of us as clinical sexologists and sex coaches are not trauma educated or trauma informed, but it is my bias that the work around trauma is primarily the work of therapists, not coaches. And here's the other distinguishing factor. As coaches, we do not process emotions. Now, a client may present with emotional expression, such as crying or stomping or raging, and what we do is we acknowledge the emotions, we invite them, we leave room for emotional expression, and then we redirect the client back to why they're there, back to their stated goals. And here's the other thing. In order to be a coaching client, the client must be what we call coachable, which means that the majority of the clients that we see as sex coaches are people who have already been through a therapeutic experience in treatment. It might be psychotherapy, pastoral counseling, might be a group or individual, such as a peer support group or a healing group around recovery from rape or abuse or trauma. But the work of coaching is to be present with the client in the here and now toward their stated goals, toward the future. And our role is to facilitate the journey of the client toward those goals. And if emotions surface, so be it. Now let's talk about the big triad. So when we think about emotions, what occurs to us is the triad of fear, guilt, and shame. At the end of that triad is toxic shame. I find that to be the biggest issue that most of our clients will face. And anger has a really interesting dynamic. I love to reflect back on my early days when I was trained in 2 different programs by none other than John Gray, the author of the Mars-Venus paradigm. Gray described the trajectory of unresolved anger, and it is so important for couples work, and here's how it goes. Unresolved anger is like a sharp line that goes up and down like this over and over again. And anger gets a bad rap, especially for women. Anger is actually a very empowering and powerful emotion. And it's a great push-away emotion, a great emotion for ending a relationship and creating separation. When anger, though, is unresolved, guess what happens? It begins to fester and solidify, and it turns to resentment. It looks and feels like a thick, undulating slight curve to a line. And then, when resentment is not released or resolved, it turns to cement. It's called shutdown. I see this so much with the couples that I serve, and most of them have eventually or essentially even given up. And they come in their emotional state when they're ready for the coaching experience is that they're emotionally dead. Often they're so stuck in shutdown that it appears like dead on arrival. And these are the clients who expect us to be able to wave a magic wand. So it's critical to understand that emotions have also a lot to do with self-worth, self-esteem, and positive self-regard, and positive feelings, especially about the body image. One of the most important aspects of our work as clinicians is to help our clients overcome that self-shaming inner chatter. That's the MP3 thing I talked about before. And when I talked about the M for the mental realm, I talked about negative self-talk that often has accompanying emotions surrounding negative body image. Remember that? If you don't, go back and review that lesson. So last but not least, when we think about emotions, of course, there is a wide range of emotions. And in her latest book, Atlas of the Heart, author Brené Brown talks in great detail about the 87 different and distinct human emotions. It's such an incredibly powerful book, and there's so much to learn more than this rough sketch I'm giving you today about the emotional states of humans and our capacity to feel and manage emotions. Speaking of capacity, often in the emotional realm in our work is assisting clients to unearth and identify their true capacity for intimacy. Intimacy is the ability to be seen, to be heard, to be vulnerable, to risk having the courage to be known. Very often the work we do with our clients is giving them permission, and again, that journey of their claiming of the self so that they can be with themselves and with others. So that's an overview of the first E in the MEBES model, that stands for emotions. And I want you to tune in for the more lessons that are coming up. I'll be sharing more with you about the other parts of the MEBES signature system. The biggest part is coming right up in B, and that's the body realm. We'll also be talking about body image and behaviors. So I'll catch you at the next lesson, and go find out about my new mentorship program, Britain's High Achievers Mastermind, at BritainMastermind.com. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.